Hello everybody and welcome back to another lesson. Today we're going to continue thinking about Roald Dahl, but we're going to be thinking a bit about adjectives and a reminder about similes, which we did before the holidays too. So to start today, I'd like to share my screen and show you this. It says adjectives at the top. Can you remember what an adjective is? Okay. I hope you've come up with some of these things. An adjective is a word that describes a noun. So remember, a noun is the name of a thing or a place. So we did a thing about nouns, or we did a noun is something that you can see and touch and name. Okay, so an adjective describes that as a word that tells you more about that noun. You might have said that. You might have said adjectives can become before the noun or after the noun. So if you were talking about someone's sandwiches, you could say he ate some delicious sandwiches. Or you could say he ate some sandwiches and they tasted delicious. So they can come before or after the thing, the noun being my sandwiches. You might say that it's really important that we put adjectives in different places. It makes our writing more exciting. You might have said that if you want to describe a noun in detail, you can use an adjective. It makes it more exciting. And if you're a really good writer, you might have thought about that when we use more than one adjective, more than one describing word, we put a little comma, just like this comma here, to separate them. Now, before we go any further, I'd like you to remind yourself a bit about adjectives. And rather than me telling you all about adjectives, I'd like you to go to this BBC website. I've given your parents the link, and there's some games and some videos that you can remind yourself all about adjectives. So if you pause me now, you can go and have a look. Okay, brilliant. I hope you've had a chance to have a go at some of those games. I hope you might have watched a little funny video about adjectives describing words and done the quiz. And you know that you're really confident now that adjectives describe something, tell us more about something. And the reason we're thinking about adjectives today is A, they make our writing really good, but B, Roald Dahl is brilliant at describing, particularly his characters, the characters in his storybooks. He's really good at describing them. So he uses adjectives to tell you more about his characters. And he also uses similes. And we talked about similes when we read our George and the Dragon story. I wonder if you remember. Can you remember what a simile is? I hope you said it's when you describe something by comparing it, by using words like as or like. So you could say he could jump as high as the clouds. So the describing word for the jumping is that adjective, the high. But rather than just using an adjective by yourself, you compare it to something. So he could jump as high as the clouds. Or you could say he was tiny like a mouse. So thinking a little bit more. So tiny being our adjective, and like a little mouse, comparing it turns it into a simile. Now again, Roald Dahl is fantastic at this. So I've sent home today some extracts from his books. There's a description from the BFG, the Big Friendly Giant that we've been thinking about. There is a description of one of the children from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And there is also a description of Mr. Twit. But you could pick up any Roald Dahl book and you will find that he's really good at using adjectives and similes to describe his characters. So, when you read them today, there's quite a lot of tricky words. I'm going to read one for you now, but you might want your grown-ups to read you the others. And I'd like you to listen to them, follow the words along, and I want to see if you can spot and colour in or highlight the adjectives, those describing words. And if you're feeling really clever, can you spot when it's not just an adjective by itself, but actually it's a simile when it compares and using an adjective using as or like? I want you to think about why he uses adjectives and similes and why it makes the writing better for you as a reader. What impact does it have? And then, what is your favourite character description and why? You might even want to have a look in some other books you have at home to spot some adjectives and similes. So before you go, I'd like to share one with you now. Now, this description is about Mr. Twit. Now, Mr. Twit is not a very nice man, not a very nice character. But that's what's great about Roald Dahl's books. He doesn't just write about nice, pretty little girls. He writes about all sorts of terrible things. So I'm going to read you this about Mr. Twit now. And it says, Mr. Twit was one of those very hairy-faced men. The whole of his face, except for his forehead, his eyes, and his nose, was covered with thick hair. The stuff even sprouted in revolting tufts out of his nostrils and his ear holes. Mr. Twit felt that his hairiness made him look terrifically wise and grand, but in truth, he was neither of these things. Mr. Twit was a twit. He was born a twit, and now at the age of 60, he was an even bigger twit than ever. The hair on Mr. Twit's face didn't grow smooth and matted as it does on most hairy-faced men, but it grew in spikes that stuck out straight like the bristles of a nail brush. And how often did Mr. Twit wash his bristly, nail-brushy face of his? The answer is never, not even on Sundays. He hadn't washed it for years. Okay, so that's one of the extracts you might decide that you want to read today. To read with your grown-up nice and slowly so you can listen to hear those describing words, those adjectives, or those similes. You might also want to use one of the other character descriptions. That's fine too. So as I said, there is Mr. Twit in there. There is also a character from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Okay, and it's about one of the boys. He was called Augustus Gloop. You might want to read about him. Or you might want to read about the BFG. Now, all of these have some quite complicated words in, but I want you to try your best and also listen to those complicated words, because hearing that really good vocabulary, those really good words, that helps us become better readers and writers. I hope you have fun sharing some of Roald Dahl's character descriptions today and that you can spot some adjectives and similes of your own. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye-bye.